This last week, we have had news of Russia trying to involve themselves yet again into our elections. So if we go back to 2016, they were obviously trying to do it. And there's this idea from the Trump camp and the MAGA people that this was all a hoax. It never really existed. This was not true. That it was never a hoax. And I don't know why the media allows them to get away with saying that. I don't know why, just in general, people are allowing that whole side to say this was a hoax. Ha ha ha, you guys fell for it. I actually saw people that said people like Nancy Pelosi and Joe Biden and whoever else they said, Chuck Schumer, need to be prosecuted for their role in the Russian hoax. First of all, it wasn't a hoax. There was a full investigation on the Russian interference into our election in 2016. There were numerous arrests based on that investigation. So how are we calling it a hoax? In what way was it a hoax that Russia involved themselves in the investigation? Now, some people want to say, you guys were saying Donald Trump was involved. I mean, I think so Robert Mueller did this whole investigation and they interviewed him in front of Congress. There was a congressional hearing and they asked Robert Mueller flatly, do you have enough to charge Donald Trump in this investigation? And he said yes. From that point, it's up to the Department of Justice to move forward. For some reason, they didn't. But being a hoax, it definitely was not. There's nothing hoaxy about Russia. And now it looks like, they definitely are doing it again. And this time they're using famous, I guess you want to call it, in some respects, they are famous, but they are podcasters and influential podcasters on the right. This comes from Axios. Russian influence scheme deceived right-wing content creators. A Russian influence operation used unwitting prominent right-wing influencers to spread propaganda ahead of the 2024 election, the Justice Department alleged Wednesday. The influencer scheme is yet another chapter in Russia's long-running effort to infiltrate the opinions of American audiences via social network and online manipulation. The indictment, unveiled Wednesday, alleges that RT, a Russian state media network, allegedly funneled nearly $10 million through foreign shell entities to direct and fund a Tennessee-based online content creation company to produce videos often consistent with the government of Russia's interest in amplifying U.S. domestic divisions. Through the indictment released Wednesday, though the indictment released Wednesday does not name the company, details prosecutors shared aligned exactly with that of the website Tenet Media, an online media company linked to 6 right-wing influencers, including Benny Johnson, Tim Pool, and Dave Rubin. They received substantial compensation for their content, with the commentators' contract including a monthly fee of $400,000 plus a $100,000 signing bonus and an additional performance bonus, and the second charging a fee of $100,000 per video. So if we go back to the beginning of that article, the article says that a Russian influence operation used unwitting prominent right-wing influencers. So I'm going to have to question the unwitting part of that, because if you think of the logistics. Somebody comes to you and says, hey, we're going to give you $400,000 a month to read this. You're not going to investigate that at all. You're just going to talk to your buddies and go, hey, man, I got this sheet of paper and they told me to read it and I'm just getting $400,000 a month. No, I don't know where it's coming from, but seems pretty pro-Russia. But you know what? Shit, for $400,000, I'll just go ahead and read it. I mean, I have a really hard time believing that these guys didn't know where this was coming from. And the more this plays out, the more interesting it's going to get. Here's my biggest fear is that it plays out, there's ample evidence, and nobody is charged. Just like I talked about earlier with the Russian investigation with Robert Mueller. I mean, you had plenty of people that were charged, but Robert Mueller himself said that he thought that there was enough evidence to charge Donald Trump, and they didn't charge him. So, you know, of course, it's a different fish with Donald Trump than a Tim Pool or Benny Johnson, who I'm somewhat familiar with. I don't listen to their programs. I know they're very far right wing. I've heard clips, I've seen clips, and I know who they are. But but it will, So that being said, it could be easier to charge people like that because again, there were a lot of people in that investigation that Robert Mueller had looking into the Russian investigation in 2012 or 2016 into the interference of the election, that there were a lot of people arrested, a lot of people associated with Donald Trump that were arrested and were put in jail. So we'll see what happens there. It's a very interesting story. I am interested to see how that is going to play out. And as it does, obviously, we'll keep an eye on it and keep going from there.